The morning light filtered softly through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the walls that seemed to tremble with the weight of memories. I awakened in the quiet house, where the silence pressed down like a heavy cloak, reminding me anew that Thomas was gone. His absence was more than the void where his familiar presence had been. It was a deep ache, a hollow space in the pulse of my daily life. For a long moment I lay still, breathing in the loneliness, feeling the chill of the empty side of the bed where he once lay beside me. Rising slowly, each step felt measured and tired as I made my way to the window. Outside, the garden lay in a gentle shroud of early light, but the blossoms that had once burst with color now drooped, whispers of neglect and time. Thomas had always tended it with quiet joy, his hands coaxing life from the soil. Now the flowers mirrored my own spirit, wilted and fading. Inside the kitchen, the familiar whistle of the kettle was a thin thread of normalcy in the otherwise still air. I pulled out the chipped mug Thomas had gifted me on our 20th anniversary, the one etched with delicate blue flowers. Wrapping my hands around it, I tried to drink warmth, but the coffee remained bitter, heavy with the weight of memories and unspoken sorrow. The day ahead held its usual demands, overseeing the estate, managing papers, navigating the endless responsibilities Thomas had once shared with me. Each task was a quiet testament to the life we had built together, yet now it felt like a battleground strewn with invisible traps. A knock broke through the solitude, soft but deliberate. I turned toward the sound, my heart tightening slightly as I saw Nathan standing in the doorway. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his presence sharp and commanding like a courtroom adversary. Yet beneath that polished exterior, there was a familiar vulnerability I still recognized, though dulled by ambition and something colder. "Good morning, Mother," he said smoothly, his voice calm but edged with something I could not place. His smile was effortless, but the look in his eyes betrayed a keen calculation. He held out a thick envelope, the official stamps gleaming in the morning light. "I thought you should see these," he added, stepping fully into the room, the subtle scent of his cologne mingling with the faint aroma of brewing coffee. "Some documents that require your attention and signature." I hesitated, hands brushing the envelope as a shiver traced down my spine. There was something off about this moment, something heavier than routine. Reluctantly, I unfolded the papers inside with careful fingers, the crisp paper whispering secrets with every crease. My eyes scanned the printed words, growing colder and sharper with every line. Legal documents designed to strip me of authority over the estate. Contracts written with a precision that left no room for question, clauses that would hand over complete control to Nathan if signed. Reading the words became an unbearable ache, each sentence another crack in the foundation of trust I had built around my family and our legacy. The shock was paralyzing. Nathan, my son, the boy I had nurtured through sleepless nights and endless sacrifices, was orchestrating this quiet betrayal. The memories flooded back, the countless hours I spent working to fund his education, the tears unleashed in moments of worry, the pride swelling in my chest as he walked across that graduation stage. All of it now felt overshadowed by this cold, calculated move. I looked up to meet his gaze, searching for hesitation, regret, or even a flicker of remorse. Instead, I found eyes steady and unwavering, a flicker of entitlement shining through. Nathan's wife, Melanie, always by his side, had nurtured this sense of claim, fanning the quiet flames of greed and ambition. Together, they formed a barrier against the family I longed to protect. The sting of humiliation settled over me deeper than the pain of the betrayal. This was no mere legal disagreement. It was a deliberate fracture of the bonds that were supposed to hold us together. To be undermined by my own flesh and blood, left a bitter taste I struggled to swallow. Yet, beneath the tumult of shock and sorrow, a quiet determination began to harden within me. I was not powerless. The strength Thomas had instilled in me, steadiness, patience, resilience, returned like a flame rising from embers. This estate was more than land or money. It was the heartbeat of our family's story, a legacy painstakingly built over generations. Nathan's confident facade wavered as he caught the shift in my eyes. The warmth that once connected us now felt replaced by a barrier of resolve. With a brief farewell and a tightening jaw, he turned and left, the front door clicking shut behind him like the closing of a chapter. Alone, I folded the documents and pressed them to my chest, a symbol of the wounds inflicted and the battle yet to come. The house around me, heavy with memories and silence, stood witness to my vow. I would not let this injustice define us. Softly, a breath against the empty room, I whispered the truth I would carry forward, the motto stitched into the fabric of my soul. In silence, I find strength. I sat in the quiet of the living room, clutching the folded papers, a tempest roiling beneath my calm surface. The words on those pages mocked all the years I had dedicated to Nathan, the sacrifices made in silence, the dreams invested in his future. I closed my eyes, and the memories came rushing in, unbidden and sharp. Nathan as a boy, his small hands clutching mine as we walked through the autumn leaves of the park. I remembered the nights I stayed awake, listening for his footsteps, afraid he might slip and fall or get hurt. The illnesses I soothed when he was too sick to attend school. The endless balancing act between work and motherhood, each choice chiseled out of love and duty. I recalled saving every extra penny, postponing my own needs so he could have the tutors, the better schools, the opportunities Thomas and I both dreamed of for him. The pride that bloomed whenever he excelled in his studies, the quiet tears I shed when he graduated summa cum laude, making us all believe that our sacrifices had birthed a future bright with promise. Yet here he was, wielding his success like a weapon, ready to carve me from the family's legacy. My mind drifted back to the lessons Thomas had imparted, lessons cloaked in evenings by the fireside when the world seemed gentler. He had taught me strength was not in loud declarations or impulsive reactions, but in measured patience, in the silent endurance of hardship, and in the unwavering pursuit of truth. "Never let anger dictate your actions," he used to whisper. "Let justice be your sword, and wisdom your shield." I sighed deeply and opened my eyes. The ache of betrayal was fierce, yet beneath it simmered a well of determination. I had faced storms before, losses that had threatened to undo me, but the woman I was now was forged in fire tempered by time. I would not crumble beneath Nathan's calculated greed. I thought about the family dinners when Nathan's ambition first began to show, how Melanie's quiet smiles often steered conversations toward entitlement. They had acted as if the inheritance was theirs by birthright, sidelining my place in the household with veiled disdain. I saw now how their partnership had slowly frayed the bonds between mother and son. But unraveling this web would require more than mere emotion. It would demand my full attention, endless patience, and strategy. The afternoon sun moved lazily across the carpet, catching the dust particles wavering in a beam of light. I recalled the exact moment I understood that this wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about seeing me as more than a relic of a past generation standing in the way of their desires. That realization stung almost as much as the scheme itself. Yet, no matter the wounds inflicted, I refused to relent. The weight of this house, the echoes of laughter and lessons embedded in each beam, demanded my stewardship. My children's children deserved to know the truth, to inherit a legacy unmarred by deceit. I rose from the sofa, moving toward the window where I could see the garden, now soft with shade as the day waned. I traced a path with my finger along the faded petals, drawing strength from the quiet resilience of life continuing despite the odds. Returning to the desk where Thomas used to sit immersed in his books, I opened one of his old legal tomes, dust motes dancing over the well-worn pages. It was in these quiet moments, surrounded by his presence in every corner, that clarity began to settle. The path ahead was clear, though steep. I would not engage in loud confrontations or rash accusations. My plan would be silent but piercing, built on evidence, truth, and a patient dismantling of lies. Nathan might think speed and brashness would win the day, but I knew the power of steady, methodical resolve. Flashbacks played softly at the edges of my mind, the times I clutched Nathan's small hand during late-night talks about honesty and integrity, the promises we made as a family to stand together even when tested. Those promises felt fragile now, like brittle glass waiting to shatter, yet I held on to them tightly. A bittersweet smile hovered on my lips as I recalled a quiet evening years ago when Thomas had pressed my hand in his and said, "Eleanor, the greatest battles are won not in fury, but in quiet perseverance." His voice was soft but firm, a touchstone that had seen me through grief before. Now I would embody that wisdom. My thoughts returned to the future. I imagined myself navigating this complex game of trust and betrayal with a calm heart and a keen eye. My patience would be my weapon. Where Nathan relied on charm and cunning, I would rely on truth and a steadfast spirit. I would watch, listen, and learn, letting the silence sharpen my understanding. In that quiet room, surrounded by shadows and memories, a new resolve bloomed. This was no longer just about protecting an estate. It was about reclaiming the dignity stolen from me, restoring justice to my family's name, and teaching Nathan a lesson rooted not in anger, but in unwavering resolve. The night deepened outside, and I sat back, folding the documents once more. This was but the first wound in a longer journey. I pictured the road ahead as a chessboard, each move deliberate, each piece a step closer to truth. As the house settled into its nocturnal rhythms, I whispered again to the quiet air that had witnessed both my pain and my promise. I will not be a victim. I will reclaim what is rightfully ours. With every heartbeat, the silent decision grew stronger within me, ready to surface when the time was right. The days that unfolded after my silent vow became a slow but deliberate march forward, each one etched with quiet determination. The house, once a sanctuary filled with soft whispers of the past, now pulsed with the rhythm of a battle quietly brewing. My laptop, glowing softly in the dim light, had become my sword and shield. I settled at the desk Thomas had cherished, the grain worn smooth where his hands had moved with purpose, and prepared to uncover what lay beneath Nathan's polished exterior. This was where I would fight, not with outbursts or fury, but with steady patience and a sharp eye. The details began to unravel little by little as I delved into the estate's financial records, legal contracts, brokerage statements, and correspondence. Disparate pieces that, when woven together, revealed a web of quiet deceit. Tax filings that didn't add up, signatures that seemed forged, transactions that shifted just out of plain sight. What Nathan had attempted to cloak in legalese was a carefully orchestrated plan to wrest control from me. I pored over each document, the house's silence pressing in around me, my mind attuned to every nuance, every inconsistency. One afternoon, the phone rang, its shrill tone cutting through the stacks of papers and endless spreadsheet tabs. It was a voice that brought with it a surge of hope, Dr. Thomas Beckett. Years before, he had been more than a law professor. He had been a guide and mentor to Nathan in his fledgling years, someone I trusted implicitly. His steady voice was reassuring as I outlined the troubling discoveries I had made. "We need to meet," he said without hesitation. "This situation isn't just about business, it's about family, trust, and justice." When we met, the air in his office felt thick with the weight of history and wisdom. Surrounded by towering shelves of legal treatises and case law, I felt that same quiet power that Thomas had always embodied. Dr. Beckett's eyes held a grave kindness as he examined the documents I'd gathered. "Your instincts are right," he confirmed. "Nathan's knowledge of the law makes him a dangerous adversary, but truth is a resilient thing." Bolstered by his support, I gathered courage to forge a broader network. Friends of Thomas, colleagues familiar with our family, and a few discreet confidants began to offer whispered assistance. Each call, each conversation brought new pieces of the puzzle: anonymous letters, forgotten receipts, memories of hushed discussions Nathan had tried to keep secret. It was as if the walls themselves held witnesses to the silent battles waged beneath the surface. As the evidence mounted, so too did the realization of the depth of Nathan's betrayal. His actions were not merely about acquiring wealth or property. They were a calculated attempt to erase my role, to rewrite our family story with himself as the sole heir. The estate, the heart and soul of our legacy, was being repurposed as a prize to be grabbed, disregarding years of sacrifice, love, and quiet labor. There were moments in the evenings when exhaustion threatened to settle, shadows gathering darker than before. The weight of the betrayal pressed in, a suffocating fog of pain and disbelief. Yet within the storm, an even fiercer determination took root. Nathan's speed and supposed cleverness were no match for the strength honed through years of endurance. I was no novice in the dance of strategy and patience. At the desk, I mapped out a plan as carefully as a chess player arranging pieces on a board. Every move had to be measured, every step taken with precision. Gathering hard evidence, lining up witnesses who could attest to Nathan's unscrupulous ways, and constructing a narrative that would stand unassailable in court and beyond. This was my new mission. The game was no longer just about defense, but a silent counterattack, wielded with quiet confidence and resolve. The house bore witness to sleepless nights spent aligning documents and memories. Photographs of Nathan as a small boy, bright-eyed and hopeful, mingled with letters Thomas had written, reminding me of the strength in quiet resistance. These fragments of our family told a story Nathan sought to silence, but I was determined it would be told in full. Allies emerged in subtle, unexpected ways. A retired accountant scrutinizing ledgers for hidden transactions, a neighbor recalling whispered conspiracies, a friend who unearthed emails Nathan thought lost to time. Each contribution was a ray of light slicing through the fog of deception. In a tense phone call, Dr. Beckett reminded me of the challenge ahead. Nathan's legal expertise means he'll contest every inch of ground. He won't hesitate to fight ruthlessly. But the truth, Eleanor, it has a way of piercing even the most opaque veils. His words settled over me like a well-worn cloak of realism and hope. The road ahead was fraught and steep, but I was ready. The quiet power I had cultivated, the patient gaze beneath the storm, the calm heart in the face of chaos would be my guides. On one such long night, as the house slumbered under a blanket of moonlight, I saved my collected evidence into a secure, encrypted folder. These files were more than just documents. They were proof of betrayal and resilience entwined. The weight of them matched the heavy significance of the fight I was mounting. Looking around the familiar room, the worn furniture and delicate heirlooms, I felt the pulse of history and love that bound us. Nathan might seek to claim these walls and stories as his own, but they belonged to us all, to the generations who had invested heart and soul. The silence around me now felt less like emptiness and more like a shield, a quiet armor fashioned for the battles to come. This wasn't just a fight for things, It was a reclaiming of justice, dignity, and the inheritance of truth. Closing the laptop with a steady hand, I felt the rhythmic pulse of purpose swell within. The struggle was just beginning, but I was no longer afraid. My whispered vow echoed softly in the stillness. In silence, I find strength. The days following my quiet vow unfolded with deliberate purpose, each moment pressing me closer to the confrontation I had prepared for so long. The house, once a comforting refuge filled with soft echoes of the past, now pulsed with a tense energy that spoke of battles yet to come. My laptop, glowing softly amidst scattered papers, became my steadfast ally. Sitting at the desk Thomas had cherished, I embraced the quiet power his wisdom had instilled in me, using it to navigate the complex web Nathan had woven. I immersed myself in the careful organization of financial records, contracts, and correspondence, each document a key to unraveling the truth behind Nathan's schemes. I traced suspicious transactions and scrutinized signatures that seemed out of place. It was clear he had used his legal knowledge not to protect family, but to dismantle it piece by piece, believing the law would shield his ambitions. Then, one afternoon, as my mind labored over another stack of ledgers, the phone rang, a voice both familiar and reassuring, Dr. Thomas Beckett. Years earlier, he had been Nathan's mentor, a man whose counsel I respected deeply. His calm tone carried the gravity of the situation. "We need to meet," he said, quietly. "There's more at stake here than just family disputes. It's about reclaiming what's rightfully yours." Our meeting took place in his office, a sanctuary shaded by towering rows of legal tomes and the weight of countless battles for justice. His measured gaze held a mixture of concern and resolve as I presented the evidence I had compiled. "You've done well, Eleanor," he said, "but be prepared. Nathan's expertise makes him formidable. Your strength lies in the truth you carry." With Beckett's guidance, I widened my circle carefully, enlisting trusted friends of Thomas and discreet allies who valued integrity above all. Slowly, information surfaced, overlooked invoices, buried emails, and whispered recollections from those who had witnessed Nathan's intentions. Every fragment added weight to the growing case against him. The more I uncovered, the deeper the betrayal felt. This was not simply about an inheritance. It was an attempt to rewrite our family's story, to erase the years of care, sacrifice, and love that had built this legacy. Nathan sought to claim the estate and the history embedded within it as solely his own. But within that sorrow, a fierce resolve took hold. The patience and quiet observation Thomas had taught me became my weapons. Nathan's speed and charm meant little against a mother's unwavering love and the steady pursuit of justice. I mapped my path with the precision of a chess master. Every piece of evidence was placed thoughtfully, every witness carefully prepared, and every legal motion anticipated. No stone was left unturned. The house itself, once filled with soft memories, became a war room of resolve and strategy. Letters from Thomas, his steady voice from the past, reminded me that true strength lay not in fury, but in perseverance. Photographs of Nathan as a child, innocent and hopeful, urged me to fight not just for justice, but for healing, the hope that someday family wounds might mend. Among my allies was a retired accountant who scrutinized records with the devotion of a detective, a neighbor whose ears had gleaned whispered secrets Nathan had hoped remained unheard, and a longtime friend who uncovered digital correspondences Nathan thought erased. Their quiet support bolstered my belief that truth was gathering momentum, ready to break through. One night, as I prepared for the coming trial, both legal and personal, Dr. Beckett's voice rang in my ear. "Nathan will be relentless. He knows every loophole and will use them without remorse. But remember, Eleanor, truth is a force no deception can contain forever. His words settled like a shield around me, fortifying my resolve. I was no longer alone against a tide of cunning and ambition. The power I had cultivated was a steady current, its strength amplified by patience and careful watchfulness. In the stillness of a late night, I secured all evidence in an encrypted folder, the weight of those files as tangible as the decades of betrayal and hope entwined within them. The house held its breath around me, the worn walls and treasured heirlooms silent witnesses to a legacy worth defending. Nathan might claim these walls, these memories, but they were ours, woven from the sacrifices of generations. This was not only a fight for material assets, but a struggle for justice, dignity, and truth. Closing the laptop, I felt the rhythm of purpose swelling inside me. The fight was only at its dawn. My whispered vow, soft against the silence, carried the power of resolve. In silence, I find strength. In the days that followed, my preparations grew more resolute. I carefully packed a sturdy briefcase, filling it with the fruits of my patience: affidavits, contracts, financial analyses, witness statements, all neatly arranged for presentation. Among the legal tools, I placed a small photograph of Nathan as a child. A reminder that beneath the conflict, the son I once held still existed. Each item was a symbol of the legacy I sought to protect and the love threaded through our family story. Alongside the paperwork, I gathered mementos dear to me: Thomas's watch, a leather-bound volume of poetry, a hat passed down from my grandfather. These tangible connections to the past grounded me, anchoring my spirit amidst the swelling storm. The house transformed before my eyes, a place of nostalgia now turned to battleground, each room a strategic post. I moved through the familiar spaces with purpose, shedding any doubt or weakness. The strength I carried was quiet but unyielding, as calm and sturdy as the oak trees outside. Maintaining composure became both armor and sword. Nathan's polished demeanor might still sway some, but I was no longer the woman who accepted appearances at face value. Beneath my serene exterior, a fierce determination burned brighter than ever. The night before my scheduled meeting with Dr. Beckett, sleep eluded me. Moonlight spilled through the windows, bathing the house in pale light. The familiar creaks and settling groans of the house became a steady metronome, marking the moments until I faced truth. As I lay awake, memories mingled with hope. The painful chapters of betrayal stood beside the promise of justice finally unveiled. I was ready for this moment. The battle was mine to win, not with fury or haste, but with the patient clarity of a mother who refused to be silenced. And so, as dawn edged near, I whispered once more into the quiet air, my heart steady and sure. In silence, I find strength. The evening air lounged heavy with a deepening twilight as I arrived at the venerable hall where Dr. Beckett was to speak. The grand entrance was already busy with familiar faces, some eager young law students clutching notebooks, others who had spent decades wrestling with truths big and small. They all drawn here by the promise of a lecture that promised to wrestle with the harder edges of justice. It was the perfect stage for what was to come. Nathan stood near the steps leading to the stage, polished and poised as ever. His presence commanded attention, a tailored suit that seemed to armor him more than clothing ever could. Yet beneath that flawless veneer, there was something fragile and thin, a mask that trembled slightly in the softer evening light. I watched quietly from a shadowed corner tucked near the back, a quiet observer armed with years of patient resolve. The vulnerable mother I once was had been buried beneath an unyielding resolve. The hall rapidly filled, calm murmurs swelling into a soft hum, until Dr. Beckett's commanding voice cut through the quiet anticipation. He drew the room in with stories that peeled back the layers of legal theory, of truth and morality, the silent battles fought behind the polished doors of courtrooms and boardrooms. I felt the pulse of justice thrum in his words, echoing a heartbeat I'd harbored in silence for so long. Then, as if slicing through the very air itself, the moment arrived. Dr. Beckett's gaze swept the room before finding mine. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we bear witness to the remarkable strength of Mrs. Eleanor Grayson, whose quiet endurance has withstood storms that would have crushed many. Her story is a testament to truth persisting against odds. A hush took hold. I rose slowly, the weight of the briefcase in my hand grounding me, a silent battalion of years and evidence borne by each page within. Faces turned, eyes sharp and curious. Across the room, Nathan's steady gaze faltered for a heartbeat, that veil of charm cracking ever so slightly. I met it with unwavering calm. At the podium, I began laying out the truth in measured tones. First, the contracts, tangled webs designed to strip control from me and hand it to Nathan. The forged signatures that betrayed trust. The manipulated ledgers and quiet deals made behind closed doors. Each piece of evidence echoed against the walls, breaking the silence Nathan had so carefully cultivated. Gasps whispered through the crowd. I saw the shock register on faces, the disbelieving murmurs of those who had once given Nathan the benefit of doubt. His posture tightened, a confident man suddenly diminished by his own misdeeds. Melanie's practiced smile faded alongside his bravado, replaced now by a haunting tension. I moved on, presenting witness statements through Dr. Beckett's voice, testimonies of whispered plans and concealed agendas from voices brave enough to speak the truth. The weight of each tale pressed on the room, undeniable and piercing, unraveling the fabric of deceit cleaving through family ties. When the last shred had been revealed, I lifted my eyes, voice steady and clear, and said, "You underestimated a mother's wisdom." The words hung there like a delicate but unbreakable thread holding a room captive. Silence followed, heavy and full of meaning, broken only by quiet nods and murmurs of agreement. Nathan's face drained of color, the fortress of arrogance dissolved under exposure. Afterwards, as the audience dispersed in whispered conversations, I passed Nathan in the lobby. The once commanding son avoided my eyes, his confidence vanished beneath the sudden weight of truth. Melanie's silence spoke volumes. The alliance that had stood for so long cracked in the face of consequence. Stepping into the cool, quiet night, I felt the soft embrace of peace settle over me. The streetlights painted gentle pools of light on the quiet pavement as I walked toward home. The day's victory was profound yet tempered, a pivotal moment where patience and perseverance had carved a path through shadow. The estate awaited me, the memories, the stories, the legacy I'd fought so hard to protect. It was still mine. No trickery, no whispered treason could rewrite the love etched into these walls. That evening, surrounded once again by the faded photographs and time-worn keepsakes, a long-held tension unwound slowly. The pieces of my family's history, Nathan's smile as a child, Thomas's steady hands, offered warmth amidst the lingering ache. In the calm aftermath, clarity blossomed. This silent struggle was not one of anger, but a reclamation of truth. Nathan's reckoning had begun, and though the road ahead was uncertain, the foundation of honesty remained unshakable. With a breath drawn deep, I embraced the strength that silence had gifted me, feeling whole at last. The days that followed felt like a gentle unfolding, as if the heavy weight that had settled over my life was finally beginning to lift. Nathan's absence, once a sharp void, now hung softly in the air, a quiet space filled with reflection rather than conflict. The estate, which had once echoed with the harsh sounds of betrayal, now reclaimed its place as a home, a sanctuary built on love and history that no legal battle could undo. Walking through the rooms, my fingertips brushed over the familiar textures, the worn edges of family photographs, the polished wood of furniture passed down through generations. Each object carried a memory, the bright laughter of Nathan as a child, Thomas's calm presence captured in a smile. These remnants of the past were living stories, woven together by time, resilience, and affection. They were the true legacy no manipulation could erase. Outside, the garden stretched peacefully, the roses Thomas had nurtured still blooming as if in defiance of the shadows that once crept among them. In the quiet embrace of the fresh air and scented blossoms, I found a place to breathe, to let the tension that have gripped my heart loosen and finally release. Here, surrounded by the gentle murmurs of nature, I allowed myself the bittersweet space to mourn alongside the courage to hope. Freedom, born from truth, carries its own peculiar weight, light in its promise but heavy with what it signifies lost. The ache of betrayal persisted in the quiet corners of my mind, a whisper reminding me of the wounds that lay not yet completely healed. Yet beneath the lingering pain, a wellspring of strength flowed, a strength that no storm could drown. I was no longer the person held captive by hurt or confusion. The silent battles had forged a woman tempered by patience and clarity, a woman reclaiming her story with a resolve born from love and experience. The scars remained, but they were no longer prisons. They were marks of survival, badges of quiet victory. Evenings became a time of reflection rather than fear. I lit a small candle in the study, its flame flickering gently, casting shadows that danced along the walls like old memories. The house, once so heavy with tension, now seemed to breathe with whispered promises, a testament to endurance, healing, and the quiet power within. Often, my thoughts drifted to Thomas and the lessons he had quietly woven through our lives. Strength, he had taught me, did not need to roar to be heard. Often, it lived in silence, in patience, in unwavering resolve, and in the grace to endure when all seemed bleak. It was this strength I leaned on, a beacon guiding me through the twilight of trials. The words that had become my mantra filled the stillness of my nights. In silence, I find strength. They were more than a phrase. They were a reflection of a journey marked by tears, endurance, and ultimately redemption. With this newfound power, I prepared to turn the page, embracing the new chapter before me, a chapter where peace was not the absence of sorrow, but the presence of courage. I understood now that home was not simply bricks and beams, but the safe harbor built through persistence, kindness, and the reclamation of truth. Nathan's shadow receded gradually, no longer the looming threat it had once been. I had taken back the legacy that belonged to us all, not through rage or loud confrontation, but with the quiet certainty of one who refuses to be silenced. In the stillness of this reclaimed space, I found more than strength. I found serenity, a peace born from battles fought with grace, patience, and the steadfast wisdom that only silence can teach. And so, in the gentle hush of my cherished home, I finally felt whole.